Hello and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. I'm your host, Lauren. Tonight is this is the second time I've recorded actually. At the time of this recording, it is the summer solstice, and I originally had no plans for this evening other than just kind of relaxing in between day shifts. However, I got a bit of a nudge to move the soul care hour from tomorrow, which is Friday, to tonight. And I thought, let's do a little summer solstice thing. And I didn't know a lot about summer solstice. I kind of had like the basics. So I did a little bit of reading today just to deepen it a little bit and ended up kind of doing an impromptu meditation as part of it. And cord cutting and some oracle card pulls, which is in the previous episode. I thought I better get this published right away so that in the next couple days some people can view it and get the benefits of it. Not that you can't any other time of the year, but it's just most relevant within the next few days, right? However, saying that, I also I'm going to be busy this weekend. So I wanted to make sure that I had an episode recorded, edited, and scheduled for Monday, just in case we get home kind of later on Sunday and I don't feel like recording or have too much going on. So I wanted to do a quick recording. I really should be in bed. I still have to shower and get into bed, but I'm going to, as I always say, try to keep this short. This evening, I want to talk about something that I've been thinking about, and I did write it down as a note in my phone. And it's something I've been noticing lately, and I thought it was really interesting. And it's around how when you start to get curious and, you're doing some of that inner work and really embodying it, you start to notice I start to notice kind of I get like analogies about life, and I also life gets a little bit more poetic and you start to see the themes, and I feel like there's a better word that I'm grasping for. It doesn't help that it's a quarter after 10 p.m. But I'll just go into it. So last night I was at beach volleyball. I play beach volleyball every Wednesday evening. Last night was super hot, but thankfully we played at 7:30 instead of 6 because it was like stupid hot. It felt like 42 degrees Celsius yesterday. And even with it cooling down when we were playing, I still drank like a liter and a half of water in, I don't know, a little less than an hour and a half while we were playing. And over the last few weeks I've noticed this and just haven't recorded this episode. And now I know why, because last night it was made even more prominent with one of the gals on our team. She really kind of took a lead and a role in this whole theme. And what I found really interesting is how um when you look at a really like well-oiled team, like a well put together, they're well practiced, they really have that like bump set spike routine. They keep there's like a flow to a flow, a cadence, a rhythm to how they receive the ball when it goes over the net, and how they work together. They set each other up, and then they spike it or whatever, hit it over the net, and they slow it down, and it's very conscious and intentional. And even sometimes they really are able to aim it well. Now I just, if I get it over the net, that's great. I'm not looking necessarily for like empty spots. And I noticed that with some of the teams that we play, they're really good, and I think they've been playing for years. And with us, there's a few of us I think that have been playing together for a few years. I've been with them. This is my second summer, and we have some new people, at least one new person, a couple new actually. So we're kind of just getting into the groove. And when you only play once a week for an hour and a half, it's hard to kind of establish too. And we only play once a year. We only play in the summer, so it's not like we're playing winters as well. Anyhow, I noticed that some players are a little bit more, they have they will take time to kind of slow down and make sure they're behind the ball and ready to volley it to set it if they get it first, and or set it for the next person, or they're ready to receive the set and to hit it over. And then there's other people who are just kind of like worked up, and they don't they just like, if they get it first ball, they just try and get it right over the net. And sometimes it does go over, sometimes they just put it right at the net and into the net. And what was really interesting is I saw a parallel between how we play volleyball and how we respond to life based on our nervous system health. And this may sound so bizarre, but it was just like, whew, it was such a like aha, really interesting realization that I had. And it really was the difference between when I talk about how when our nervous system is dysregulated and we're worked up and that prefrontal cortex isn't online, we are very much we are reacting to our environment, we're reacting to life and what it's throwing our way. And this is when we can get into that victim mentality that life is happening to us and we don't have any control, and we're a victim to it. And we look the mindset is things outside of us have to change in order for us to feel better, where in reality we need to take back our own control when we're like that, right? Because it's truly no way to live. I've lived there a lot of my life when things go bad, but now I have this awareness and I'm working with it so that I don't live there anymore. I obviously have these times, but I try not to live there. And then we compare that to those who have their nervous system more regulated and they're doing more like self-care, soul care, taking care of their mind, body, and soul through nourishing practices. And it gives them an opportunity to create space and create a bit of a pause in between what's happening in front of them and how they want to respond to it. So it's the difference between reacting and responding. And um there was a beautiful representation of that yesterday, and we won one game out of four. And the game that we won, one of the girls, one of the new girls, she was like our coach for the game. It was awesome. And she was very much like, because I'll yell it too, like, slow it down, 3 hits, because I'm trying to encourage that, like, instead of react, respond. Get prepared for it. Get prepared for that first hit. Set it to the person that's the setter at the front middle, and let them set it to the one on the either side in order to hit it over. So for that game, and we were losing at the time. I don't remember what the gap was in points, but we were able to chip away. We ended up winning the game, and we did really well. Like, we were all very proud of ourselves. But it was just this notion that she was constantly reminding us, she was coaching us through the whole game. Slow it down. One, bump, set, spike, or 1, 2, 3. And there was kind of a cadence to that. And she was reminding us actively as we were playing not to just react and hit it over and try to win that way, because it doesn't seem to work well with us. The other team, they're well oiled, right? So they can have that kind of reactive just to throw us off. But anyway, she did a really beautiful job of slowing it down, creating that gap. And in kind of the psychology or therapy world, I guess, I'm trying to think of the first time I heard that term and learned about it. It might have been through Marley, my mentor, but I think there's been other times. Essentially, the gap is the space between the external stimulus and how we respond or react to it. And like I was saying earlier, when we have something going on that's dysregulating, or we've got this chaotic game going on, taking that, like, literally, like, sometimes you just take a breath, whatever's going on in front of you that could be dysregulating or a bit chaotic. Instead of just, like, having this, like, ego human, nervous system primal reaction to it, knowing that there's something going on and very consciously taking a breath, taking a few breaths, taking like a figurative step back and looking at it and going, what am I looking at here? What have I got in front of me? What do I need to, what am I working with essentially? And that gives you an opportunity to then make a different choice than you would if you were just in a reactive state. This can go with situations where conversation is getting a little heated, maybe, and then instead of letting the ego drive the car, or ego can also be your inner child, right? When your inner child gets hit, something that happened in childhood that was hurtful, it still lives inside of you. And when we have those moments that the ego kind of takes over, we react. And oftentimes we say the things that we don't mean. That's like, I was explaining it to someone not too long ago, but that's like letting our inner child, those wounded, those hurt parts of us, like, take the wheel of our life, right? They're driving the bus. And that's when those like hurtful things, or like we say things that really, especially if you notice like you've just said something that really isn't appropriate to your age, that's a good indicator that some sort of younger version of you has just taken over and is saying the things that they would have said at the time. I know this sounds all weird, but I'm telling you, it's a thing, at least in my world. And it's been very helpful because I now I I looked for that gap. And I can tell you actually, before I wrap up, I have another example that just came to me of a conversation that I had with someone not long ago where, and this is someone that I'm easily triggered by. There's just a whole lot that still probably lifelong unpacking just based on the dynamic of the relationship. And I got a phone call from this person and they were like super, super dysregulated. They were saying this stuff and they needed me to do something right away. And normally, not so long ago, I would have immediately gotten triggered. I would have snapped back at them. I would have definitely led from like an inner child point of view and just like would have been unkind and just tried to shut them down. And I almost did. I was like, I was teetering over the edge, but seeing myself going there, I made the decision like, oh man, this isn't gonna go well. So I actually took a moment, I took a breath, and I created that gap. And I got curious. I asked a few questions. The at the end of the day, the request that they had asked of me, I didn't feel I was the best suited to do it. Essentially, they were like telling me what was going on with something and um they wanted me to call and I don't want to say too much without like really giving away. Anyway, make a phone call to see if like corrective action needed to be done, and if so, make an appointment, blah blah blah. And I kind of said, well, like I haven't really been in this situation, and if any follow-up questions are asked, I don't have the information. So I understand, like I'm trying to be supportive of you and like take stuff off your plate if I can, but make the first phone call, because then if they have any questions for you, you can answer them because you're the one telling. At this point, I would just be regurgitating information that I don't really have experience with. And if follow-up action is required, I will do the second phone call and make an appointment kind of thing. Now, it's still, the conversation didn't really end super well in that they just kind of shut down and was like, well, I can't deal with this now, and more or less hung up on me. But another thing that is different than how it has kind of always been up until like more recently, I would say, um, within the last few months, definitely the last couple years, that I've been doing a lot of this, soul searching, as sometimes happens after a huge loss. when we lose a piece of ourselves. Instead of getting like super activated and maybe angry or disappoint disappointed, or just kind of like that ego response of like, how dare they talk to me that way, treat me that way, cut the phone call short because I didn't give them what they wanted. I just kind of was like, well, I mean, I wasn't doing it just to screw them over and not be helpful. I had a reason for it, and I even tried to explain it, like, why I don't think I'm the best to make this first phone call, this, and this. And just setting, I guess, a bit of a boundary, just because I was like, well, I'm not gonna play this weird game of telephone. And I just let the rest go, because it's like, well, they are activated right now. They're dysregulated. It doesn't condone and make it okay that they talk to me that way, but when we can create that space, we can kind of just see it for what it is. Like, all right, well, it is what it is, right? And I can waste my time ruminating and getting upset at it, or I can just say, well, I mean, that's their shit, right? That's stuff they got to work on. And I'm not going to be the emotional doormat, but I can only support in what I'm able to, and the rest, it's not my burden to carry. I'm not going to pick that up and run with it, essentially. So there was, up until, like I said, recently, I would have like gotten super pissed off about that and probably like ruminated about it, and you know talk to people about it. And it was just kind of my husband and and I was kind of just like, I don't know, like, I got stuff to do too, and I just don't like, it's just not going to work out well that way. And they have their own stuff that's been really overwhelming them, but it's also not my job to, like, we all got to take care of our own soul care too, right? Like, we got to put our tools to use. I can't force them upon anyone or tell them like, you need to get your shit together. Because especially when we get into that like headspace, and we're just in it, we're just survival, and I can totally like understand and empathize with that. But it was really a learning of what's mine here, and what's not. And I'm not going to attach to it, I'm not going to react to it, I'm not just going to like force the ball back right away. I'm gonna get behind it, and I'm gonna set it up nicely and see what happens there, and know that I did it from a regular space. And regardless of how, the other side reacts to it when I send it back over from like um a conscious, like, set up place, that part's not on, like, that's not my responsibility, right? So anyway, a little bit of a story and a bit of symbolism and analogy there for you. I thought it was cool, so I want to share it. Anywho, I'm gonna pop off because I need to get this edited and scheduled and get to bed. So I hope everyone's doing well wherever you are, and sending you love if you need it. And we'll see you inside the next episode. Bye, everyone.